Hey everybody, Dan here with Fin Feather for Outfitters. Today we're going to look at a couple different Smith & Wesson revolvers. People love Smith revolvers, and I've got two here to show you. This is a 44 Magnum. It's a Model 69 Combat Magnum, and it's built on the L frame. It's a 5-shot double action revolver that has been great since the time I've owned it. But over here we've got an old school Smith & Wesson produced in 1988. It's a 357 Magnum revolver, quite a bit different. We're going to talk about it, slightly compare them where they are comparable, and I think you'll like what you see. So let's do it. Wow. Big difference, totally confident. This is nice. Over to the right. And I missed. We'll try that one in double action. I can stage the trigger with this. The Smith & Wesson Model 69 Combat Magnum is great. This has the 4 1/4 inch barrel. They make them a little larger, a little smaller. It's got a stainless matte finish to it with a rubber grip. As I mentioned, it's on the L frame. It's a 5-shot. It would be a 6-shot if it was on the K frame. All right. So it's a medium-sized frame, partial underlug. It's got excellent double action. And then the single action's phenomenal. It also has a transfer bar safety in there. All right, that will drop as the trigger is cocked back and fired. The sight system offers a adjustable rear sight and a ramped front sight with an orange insert in there that is replaceable. It's a 2-piece barrel. All right, and overall very, very cool. I've loved this since I've owned it. The MSRP goes for right around $1,000. But over here we've got something that you can't buy in your local gun store anymore, at least in the new section, perhaps in the used section. This was produced in 1988. It's a Model 19-5. Now every time you see a dash, that means it's a variation of the model. So this was the 5th variation. So what did they do with this? Well, let's first show clear. It's a 6-shot 357 Magnum. It's in beautiful condition. Produced in 88, as I mentioned. That makes it 37 years old. And a lot of people love the classic Smith & Wesson revolvers. But they removed the recessed cylinders. That's one of the things that created the dash, the variation, is that they had recessed cylinders in there. They don't use those. Well, they didn't use those with this model. I think cutting down the machining work was their motivation behind that. Just my thoughts, because it really doesn't offer too much. It looks cool when they sit flush in the cylinder, but I don't know that it is so important that they have that on every model. So that's one thing they removed for the Dash 5. Wow, it really moves those targets. I don't know what I did there. There we go. I'm going to go off to the left. Nice. To the right. I should have one more. Also, they removed the pin barrel. All right, you can see that it's not, well, you may not see it, but it's no longer a pinned barrel with this model. Now, if we look at the grips, I love wood grips on stainless revolvers. This is not stainless, so I want to talk about that. But it's got a great looking grip. It's an original grip. Look at that. I love the way that looks. It looks stainless, very much a shine, but this is nickel plated. It's built on carbon steel. Or built with carbon steel, nickel plated. I actually called the Smith & Wesson rep, and they said they stopped nickel plating, but that turned out not to be true. So this is nickel plated. Also a partial underlug. This is different because it has a color case hardened hammer with a hammer mounted firing pin. See that? Anytime you see that with an old Smith, at least as it sits now, then you'll know that it's old school. All right, same with the trigger. Now the trigger does have some serrations in there, as where the newer triggers don't. That has some serrations in there. Not a bad thing. And then the double action feels about the same. Single action, that is just phenomenal. And it's phenomenal on this too, I have to say. Wow, that is so different. I'm not one of those guys that are going to say the old school ones are better than the newer ones. You're not going to hear that here. I think they both have their advantages and disadvantages. The rear sight hasn't changed much. It's also adjustable. And then the front sight is fixed. Okay, that's not removable. They call that a Patridge sight. Some people will refer to it as a Patrick sight. But the finish looks beautiful. It shoots incredibly well. Now, the 6-inch barrel certainly helps. When you put 6 inches, and especially if you go in single action, if you're on target, just squeeze that trigger a little bit, and it will fire. You're looking at, I would say, at least $1,000 for this. I paid less for it. But you're looking at least $1,000 for this, if you can even find one. The classic Smith revolvers are highly sought after. You seldom see them anymore. But the difference is that these parts, the trigger and the hammer, are MIM. They're metal injected, okay? And so, is that a problem? I don't think so. Maybe when they first started doing that, it was a problem. Not anymore. They crafted that to make them so strong. So I don't see that necessarily as a downside, but it is not color case hardened, which strengthens the metal. It won't break. Not worried about that. It also has a frame lock. And I'm noticing that Smith is starting to do away with those on some of the recent models. And I think that'll make a lot of gun owners happy. It doesn't affect the function at all. However, a lot of people don't like them. They call them a Hillary hole. And if you'll see here on this model, it does not have that. And you won't see that with any of the classic models. So there we have a Model 19-5 nickel plated carbon steel built wood grip 1988 revolver with a fixed front sight, color case hardened trigger and hammer. Hammer mounted firing pin right there, and you'll see a matte finish, beautiful 44 Magnum. Once again, Dan here with Fin Feather for Outfitters. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.